Last night, TheatreMcLean premiered Mr. Burns, a post-electric play that looks at what would happen to pop culture after the apocalypse. The musical was completely sold out and was a roaring success.
Mr. Burns' Post-Electric Play is a story about stories. It's a giant game of telephone and what happens to pop culture, what happens to stories as they move and progress through the years. So the show is done in a three-act format where the first act is in the near future and a group of survivors are talking about The Simpsons. Then in the next act, it goes 7 years later, and what happens to that story of The Simpsons? How does it transform? How does it evolve within 7 years? And then the third act is 75 years later. What happens to that episode of Simpsons?
I thought tonight went amazing, especially for an opening night of a show that is completely out of the ordinary. The entire cast and crew really put their all into it, and it showed. Today's audience was amazing. They were laughing, they were clapping. It was incredible.
TheatreMcLean created a first-of-its-kind show with 3 different sets and an audience experience that brought them right into the action. Literally.
I wanted to change the location every single time because I wanted the audience to feel that change. And the first 2 acts should feel claustrophobic. It should feel like we're telling a campfire story. It should feel like we are peering into the lives of these 6 survivors. And then Act 3, those survivor stories are now enlarged into a greater scale.
It was a lot of work and a lot to manage. We had to transition each set from Act 1 to 2 in only 5 minutes, and then Act 2 to 3 in only 10 minutes. And having the set in the audience was actually a lot harder to build.
I just love to see the look on the audience's face when the curtain opens, and that's not what they're expecting.
The play was loosely based on The Simpsons, and the lovable characters of the classic sitcom added a new layer to the show.
I remember watching The Simpsons during commercial breaks for baseball with my dad. So we just switched channels back and forth, and I'd always secretly wish that he'd forget the baseball was on so we could watch more Simpsons.
Knowing The Simpsons and understanding, the common tropes, seeing how this show plays off of those tropes and plays off of the commonly known characters, it really very much adds the experience both as an audience member and as a performer.
Taking the complex sets and story in stride, the Mr. Burns cast brought their best to the performances and revealed the true purpose of art, the individual experience.
I usually play very serious villains, and this role is serious, but there's a level of manic and crazy that is new for me as an actor.
I've never experienced the apocalypse, so really getting into the mindset of the world is ending, what are we going to do, that was a really big challenge for me, and also balancing the joy of The Simpsons and the reality of the apocalypse during the first act was really hard to manage.
At the end of the day, art is not a linear thing. Art is subjective. It is something that you are going to experience at an individual level, and I think that's what Burns is about, what this play is about, is to experience art at that individual level.
This has been Karina Bhatt reporting for WMHS News.